Vaughan is the Group Leader Connected Communities for the Central Coast Council. And Julie, take it away.
I can. I know I'm going to mess the camera up. Good morning, everybody. So, without stating the obvious, I just did want to set some context, and you'd be surprised that a number of people don't really understand the process of amalgamation, and even some of our staff have recently said to me, when we merge in September, so there's a presumption that when we have elected officials that come back in September, that's actually when we've merged, but that's not the fact. We actually did merge in May last year, so we are now, I think, the third largest council in Australia. So, just for your information, we have an interim timetable in place and interim arrangement. So we have an administrator that's assuming the role, Mr. Ian Reynolds, and an acting CEO, Rob Noble. So both of those people were placed into their roles until September, and we have our council elections coming up on September 10th. There'll be 15 elected councillors. Against, and I presume most of you have seen the new ward system that will actually be what we'll be voting on when it comes to September 10. So we have 5 wards. So in the former Wyong, there was 2 wards, and I think it was a similar sort of arrangement in Gosford. So how the voting system will work, I mean, there's a map which I can actually circulate, and you guys can actually put onto your website and circulate amongst the members, because it's important for you to understand where the boundaries are, because some of them are a little bit skewed and you think you're in the Gosford one, but if you live at East Gosford you may not be actually in the Gosford one, and some of those sort of intricacies. But the reality is there'll be 3 elected officials from each ward, so it's as simplistic as that, which is quite different to what has happened in the past. One of the things I didn't mention on the previous slide was, you could imagine, I mean, we're still in transition and transformation mode. I mean, whilst we may have merged nearly a year ago, bringing 2 organisations of the size, and when I start to show you the sheer size of what we are now as a Central Coast, has been an enormous task. I mean, Tony and I were talking about some of the work he does, and around simple systems such as asset management. We had 43 asset registers, none of which were coordinated and combined, most of which didn't have the same information. We have completely different HR systems, we have completely different finance systems, we have completely different processes for reporting work health and safety, etc. So the duplication has been enormous, but the efficiencies already being realised are enormous. So, combining of our insurance policies has realised $750,000. We're realising enormous savings already from bulk purchasing with procurement, and we know and we estimate millions and millions of dollars will be achieved just by some of those rationalisations. So, to be honest, and I say this often, we're not great at celebrating the successes we have within the community and letting the community know some of the great outcomes we have, because we spend a lot of time responding to issues rather than being able to proactively engage and communicate with people. So just, some of this stuff people may or may not know, but as an organisation, our vision is to build a vibrant and sustainable Central Coast, and our purpose is to provide valuable services that strengthen and support the Central Coast community. We have our values, which are really important for both our staff but also the community in which we serve, are about having energised and passionate staff, and inspiring the staff and the community with our vision, and implementing great engagement opportunities and empowering people through our leadership and collaboration. We have 2,500 staff, and of which I think it's around about 92% of those staff live, work or play in our community, which is incredibly unique for an organisation the size that we have. So most of those people, it's the level of pride we have, and the understanding of staff knowing the impact that they have with their work is extraordinary. So you don't often see or hear those sort of statistics. It's about having agile and resilient business. So we have adopted a place-based approach to how we want to do our business in the future. So that's both about designing, developing and delivering services. So our intention is to be obviously considering stuff at a regional level, at a suburb level and even at a street level. So place-based will really give us an opportunity to work much better with our communities in a whole realm of different elements. So hopefully you would have already seen that via our website, we can now drill down to street level on letting people know when and where roadworks is actually starting to happen in your community. So we're wanting to understand that the issues that, and I'll talk to you about our community strategic plan, which is a regional document, may or may not be relevant at a local community level, and that we know that our community of Wagstaff is completely different to our community of Lake Marmora, which is completely different to Yarramalong and completely different to Terrigal. So it's critical for us to actually ensure that we're working and understanding the places as a whole, and it's also about a whole of organisation approach. We have had in the past instances where our road section would go in and they'd do roadworks, and then our open space people would come in 2 weeks later and rip up the footpath and destroy the roads because their project was to do footpath repairs, and never the twain would actually talk and meet. So as ridiculous as that sounds, in an organisation the size that we were and are, that's not what, obviously we're putting strategies into place to ensure that let's understand everything holistically that's happening in communities. It's about providing efficient and effective services, empowering staff and being accountable for efficient service delivery, establishing... So, I mean, these are obviously internal elements, but it's important for you guys to understand how and why we want to provide our levels of customer service, establishing a single source of truth for data and business intelligence. So from July 1, we will be rolling out new internal IT systems, which from the external part of things, you may say, so what? The reality for us operating internally will be enormous for the customer experience that we can offer. So, any interaction that you do actually have with council, we will now have complete records and interfaces on how we actually deal with you. You'll have a much greater ability to manage the inquiries that you've actually had with us and the information that you have. So that'll be an enormous change for how we can actually interact with our customers. And finally is about genuine partnership with the community. So, and I mean, it's obviously a main chunk of the portfolio in which I actually manage, but really understanding the definition of what partnership is and working truly with the community. So it's about engaging properly, and our department certainly operates under the principle of working with, not doing to the community. So it's about capacity building. We don't want to be involved in things that we don't need to be, but often it's just about us creating a link or breaking down a bit of the barrier of the bureaucracy, or giving people some assistance through a grant that allows community to actually go on. And that's also our business community as well. So just to put in context, now as an organisation, as you can see, $11 billion in assets, an annual budget of $725 million, $183 million worth of capital works, as I've said, 2,500 staff. We currently have 331,000 residents, and we expect that to grow to 415,000 over the next 20 years, and we cover 1,681 square kilometres. So when you see it as that sort of a volume, it's pretty enormous, and we are a large operation, and when we come around to our council elections, it's going to be really important that those 15 elected officials are really now managing a major business. I just find this quite interesting for people to understand, and I mean, a number of these areas are actually within my portfolio, but when you start to understand, we've got elements such as 242 play spaces across the coast, 12 libraries, 98 community facilities, 36 off-leash areas, 73 sporting facilities, 45 boat ramps, 2,248 kilometres of water mains, 737 kilometres of shared pathways, 12 beaches. So pretty significant. The next 3 slides are made up of some facts, just to give you a bit of a context, because a lot of people often don't understand who we are now as a region. My team, from a planning perspective, a lot of this data is taken from a tool called Product ID, or ID is what it's actually known as. It's available via, and you can access it via our website, but we also provide a range of different training opportunities for community and business organisations. So you can actually drill down in quite detail on specific areas about key community statistics, both from a community and economic development perspective, as you'll see. So if people are wanting to get more information, or you have a look at the system and think, I'd like to drill a little bit further, there's contact details in there as to how you can actually do that, because it is fairly really useful for people that are wanting to understand, you know, from a business planning perspective, from a grants perspective, etc. So it's a pretty hard slide. I don't know how well you can actually see some of that sort of stuff, but we have significant issues around university and school retention rates, and obviously that leads into some of our employment and economic development realities, which a number of you would be interested in. We are now the 9th largest urban area in Australia, and I'm sorry, I know I'm turning my head for the camera, but it's easier to read than my small notes. Largest employer and industry areas is actually healthcare and social assistance, retail, trade, construction, manufacturing, education and training, which often surprises people that that's our largest area of employment. We have, we need 39,000 plus, but I actually think the next slide tells us 41,500 additional dwellings over the next 20 years. We currently have 15.5% youth unemployment compared to 11% for the state. We have a median average age of 41. 14% of our community are born overseas. So, you know, some really interesting statistics, and as well as 25% of our community leave our community every day to actually travel to work, and so therefore we're losing a quarter of our population to outer regions daily. So a couple of facts here from our local economy. As you can see there, as I said, 41,000 dwellings needed in the next 20 years. We have, but of that, 55% of our community will be over 65. We have only 2.9% of our community attend university, and over the next 20 years we need nearly 25,000 additional jobs. We're expecting 75,000 more people to the region. We currently, and 55% of our people are currently employed outside the region. So some fairly significant statistics for us from a planning perspective, and making sure we get our mix of business and social correct, because, you know, already we know, and Tony and I were again talking about some of the housing issues, for example. So I can tell you now, on any given night, just in Gosford, let alone the whole Central Coast region, there's 1,000 people that are reported as homeless. Now, most of us know that if you're homeless, you don't go into an organisation and say, do you mind just putting me on the register so I get caught up as and captured as a statistic so people can talk about me at the next forum that they talk about. So we would estimate that it's probably 10 times that on any given night. That's just for Gosford, let alone Wyong, and I can tell you many more statistics about the challenges in Wyong. So if that's what it is now, we're talking about an additional 41,500 houses. I mean, we have major issues around the need for us to plan not just about affordable houses. So affordable houses is where people are paying greater than 30% of their wage in mortgages. We need to look at alternate housing design. So in the Gosford area, we are looking and trialling tiny home concepts, but we need to certainly, from a housing development perspective, be really looking at a range of different models, because we also know that the projected growth of single person homes is growing enormously, and in the north of our coast region now we have the multiple number of McMansions. So we have 5-bedroom houses, but very soon, over the next 5 years, most of those McMansions will be having one person reside only in those locations. So some fairly significant planning elements. So we did a positive ageing strategy as a region last year. So the good thing is, I mean, although it's not only since May that the two areas of Gosford and Wyong have been working together. So there's a lot of solid regional planning that's happened as well. So our positive ageing strategy that was completed last year showed that we were 5 times the state average currently for older people. And there's a number of reasons why people return and choose to retire here. We also are projecting on the coast a 300% increase in people with dementia by 2030, like phenomenal statistics. So when I'm talking about planning for alternate housing choices, so there's a lot of great work that's happening, particularly internationally, around having different types of housing choices, often some with communal sort of living spaces. It's about obviously planning for people to stay independent in their homes for as long as possible. So you've got to catch, not only do you have housing issues, you've got challenges on the healthcare system and access to the funding supports. And as I said, the biggest industry is health and social care already. So just a little bit about my department. So Group Leader Connected Community. So I have what I think is all the great stuff in council. So pretty much any of the community interface that doesn't involve the assets or the development application side of things. At the libraries, which I'll talk to you about the regional library towards the end of this presentation, have all the learning and education. So we do a variety of community education from our rangers, our environment, road safety, beach safety, etc., as well as we have 8 childcare centres across the coast. I have all of the communications and customer service areas, so we have customer service in both centres. Marketing and tourism, you would know, no doubt, that we've just gone out to tender for our tourism services, which shut a couple of weeks ago, so we're in the process of assessing that moving forward, as well as our communication and our engagement teams. We have all of our partnerships and planning programs, so that's dealing with any element of the community, as well as providing grants, which we do supply about $1,500 worth of grants and sponsorship to our community, and certainly about attracting major regional events, business development opportunities. We have community enterprise programs, which traditionally have been done much more in the north of the area, which I have spoken to GBIT about, around town centre activation areas and taking over empty retail shops. So based on a lot of what was done in Renew Newcastle, in the north we had a year-long project operating out of Westfield Shopping Centre, and a return on investment for those community organisations that were going in there was enormous from a micro business perspective. Even from our grants perspective, we see and realise that by us just working with the community in partnership, for every dollar we give them, we know we're getting $8.50 return on investment. So it's an enormous role that we can play by giving a small amount of money to assist the community. We also do all events for the coast, so and you'll see that there'll be a much greater focus down here in the south as well about activating, the much needed activation around Gosford waterfront. There's been a lot of work with GB done in activating Kibble Park, but certainly providing our residents clearer opportunities for event participation. In the past, normally what would happen is we'd have 5 events on one weekend and nothing for 5 weeks. So hopefully we can ensure that there's a bit more coordination and there's opportunities similar to markets, etc. Place activation, we have all the town centres within our portfolio. So we actually manage the Entrance Town Centre and fund Tukli, Budgie, Wyong, and obviously GBIT. As well as we have all of our leisure and lifestyle. So we have pools, beaches, recreation centres. We have all of the theatres, galleries, and Laycock Theatre and the Art House, and obviously Regional Performing Arts Centre as well, which a number of people no doubt have questions about for here. So for us as an organisation, it's about how do we work better with the community. So it's not just my department that will be working and focusing on working with the community, it's our whole organisation. So we're really committed to community engagement. We've launched a new community engagement framework in January. As I've said earlier, it is very much about place-based. We will be working towards, and we hope by the end of this year, not only will you be able to transact with us online, but you'll also should be able to log in and go, I live in Serpentine Road on the Terrigal, tell me what's happening in the area around my community and what do you want to hear from me. So it's very much, engagement is a two-way street, and I suppose when we also talk about engagement, historically we've not been really clear with people about why are we engaging. So people think we're asking their opinion, and sometimes we're not. Sometimes we're engaging because we want to give you information. But we need to be clear, if we're consulting with you, we need to actually take that information on board and be clear on what have we actually done with that. So you will have possibly seen that we've already got pop-ups happening around the whole region. So the executive and our CEO and administrator are out and about on average at least once a week, if not twice. Myself and Rob were out at Chittaway shops on Friday, and we've got more happening. So that's really literally an opportunity for us to hear from community members that wouldn't normally come into council if there's any issues locally. And it does shock most of the residents. I mean, I had most people on Friday saying, "What are you doing here?" And, you know, when you actually say we're just from council, we're just interested in hearing if there's any issues, and normally there's huge amounts of frustrations just because people don't know how to navigate our bureaucracy. It's amazing how quickly we can improve that experience for people, but also hear some really important elements. So our expectation is that moving forward, when our elected officials do come back on board, that we have support mechanisms involved so that our councillors can get out and to hear from the community, because it's not just the staff's role. Obviously, we all elect councillors to be representative of all of our voices, so we will be hosting listening posts as well for them. You'll start to see more and more in the newspaper us actually feeding back to the community on what did you tell us. So we hear a lot. We have a range of different avenues currently for people to actually tell us or ask us questions. And we get a lot of information. We need to now be coming back to people to say, you asked us about this, let us tell you what we've done about it or what we haven't done about it. And as I said earlier, probably celebrating our successes, because we do a lot, and we're not great at informing the community that there has been some great wins, as well as, you know, there's real issues and many issues that our region face. Just one of the things, I mean, this was probably in for the slide for the previous group that we talked about, but still relevant, no doubt, to a number of you guys. So as I said, we already provide nearly $1.5 million worth of grants and sponsorship across the region. We're currently in the process of reviewing how that will be done to make that more easy to understand and seamless for the community that want to work and partner with us. We certainly expect that from a sponsorship perspective, it will be about attracting larger events and linking ourselves with key opportunities, but we certainly want to extend on partnership projects. And also just the $10 million and the $1 million, one of the elements of amalgamation was that council did receive $10 million to offer as part of grant funding. So some of you may or may not have seen the Stronger Communities Fund grants that recently were announced. So there's $9 million worth of infrastructure projects that ordinarily would not have been funded had council not been able to amalgamate. So we actually went out to the community and we got them to vote online for that. Some of the community groups were more active, and I don't know if any of you are involved in any of those groups, but we had people campaigning and developing online Facebook pages to really lobby to say, look, our Ted Doyle Park at Woi Woi is really important because this infrastructure upgrade hasn't happened. So the projects range from sporting field upgrades, traffic management solutions in Terrigal, skate park upgrades in San Remo, a range of disability improvements and access options at some of our beaches, etc. So I should have actually brought the whole list along. There are 11 projects funded through that $9 million, and they all needed to be, that we had to have consulted already with the community. They needed to have been job ready to actually go, and as I said, we consulted and heard back from the community what were their top 11 of the 30 projects we put up. So for us, that was a really great first attempt at properly engaging with the community. The other element is $1 million worth of funding that we have specifically for community projects. So we've done one round of $250,000. We're currently assessing the second round, so there'll be 2 further rounds of $250,000 each for community and business organisations to submit opportunities on how to make our region stronger. One of our key documents for our organisation and for the region is Council's Community Strategic Plan. So this is our overarching guiding document that dictates and influences Council on how we plan for any of our projects and the work that we do. We are, as of this weekend, starting the lengthy engagement process that we'll be talking in a range of mediums to the community to understand, well, what are some of the priorities. So this is critical for us to get right, and we'll have consultation happening all the way through to the end of this year on what are our priorities, and now as a region it's a great opportunity. As I said, there'll be online opportunities, there'll be focus groups, there'll be surveys, there'll be out and abouts in events, etc. and I strongly encourage, if you get the opportunity, or certainly to take the opportunity, to make sure that you're identifying any of the key issues that you believe are significant for our region or for your local suburb or for your local street, because this document ends up influencing both our long-term financial plan and our operational plan. We have legislative reporting requirements that we actually have to report against the success of that. The timetabling of that will obviously allow our new councillors to come on board and actually understand what we've heard from the community, and that's what this is about. This is about the community telling council how the community wants us to run the business moving forward. So often people don't realise the importance of it, but it's an incredibly significant project. I just note that I just did wipe over a couple of other things I was going to tell you. We also have a couple of other strategic documents. That one went to council last night, which is a disability inclusion action plan. So council by July 1 this year has to have a disability inclusion action plan by law, and a number of the elements that have come up from that consultation process with the community is about access issues into businesses and around town centres. So that's out on exhibition at the moment. If you do have issues or you're interested in understanding what that may mean for your business, certainly have a look online, and again, we're out on consultation for it. I just wanted to draw to your attention, I don't know if many of you have had the opportunity to see a place marketing campaign that we've developed called This Is Alive. So it's a project that we've been working really closely with chambers and businesses around, allowing us to tell the really positive stories about the Central Coast. So often what we know is the only things that people report on or focus on is the negative stories, and when you actually have an opportunity to look on this, it's about really highlighting the significant people and businesses that already exist on the coast, and evidence is shown from both a social and economic development perspective. We need to obviously move away from just focusing on the negative and also understanding why would you want to invest in our particular community. So they've got the details there, both from Instagram and Facebook perspective. There's a range of videos that we've already had. We have a partnership model for businesses, and from a promotion side of things, we're actually certainly promoting this well beyond and external to the region. So certainly encourage you to have a look at that and contact us if you've got some further questions. Two projects that wherever I go at the moment, I'm getting asked a lot of questions, and I presume it's topical for the Gosford people, so I thought I'd just maybe bust some myths and answer some questions. So Regional Performing Arts Centre, you guys as well as myself as a local resident know this has been around on the drawing boards for 20 plus years. At our February council meeting, council has identified the preferred site as the Leagues Club site. So there was 8 sites over the multiple years that Gosford Council has done some really important investigation on, and there's a number of reasons why the other 7 sites have been excluded, and I'm happy to answer any questions on those. But the reality is, as it stands at the moment, we have commitments from the state government of $10 million, we have commitments from the federal government of $10 million, and council has committed $10 million. In addition to that, state government has also identified $2 million towards the Conservatorium of Music to relocate them or to improve their current facilities. As it stands at the moment, we've got commitments, but we don't have the money, the $20 million from either of the state or federal government departments. It's very clear that the talk about it, and they've been putting a lot of pressure to say, you guys need to get this project moving, or the money will disappear for the region. So we did hold information session with the stakeholders that have been involved in this project for 15 plus years prior to the council meeting. I gave them access to the confidential recommendations just so that they were clear on what we were proposing. Obviously, again, I don't think it's a secret that the preferred site for the whole community would have been the old school site, but for no fault of council's, obviously that site has moved well beyond that being as the ideal site. So I suppose it's important for people to know that there's no designs done currently. So we know a few things about this particular facility. We know that the funding currently commits to a 1,000-seat theatre, a 200-seat box studio, as well as cafe, etc. We know that the footprint for the building is 5,000 square metres, and that when you add your other elements of loading docks, etc., you're looking at 6,500 square metres. So what we're doing at the moment, and you'll also see there's a lot of media coverage around is that site the best site to build on, and from a swampland perspective, etc. So we have already done significant desktop assessments. From a geotech perspective, we are doing more site investigations as well as working now on design concept stages. But this project is still a couple of years off before you're going to be attending the theatre, but we're well on the planning side of things to make that happen. Similarly, the other project that I've had a lot of questions on in a short time that I've been in my role is the Regional Library and Learning Centre. So at the same council meeting on the February meeting, we identified the preferred site as Parkside Building in Donaldson Street. So where most people would know Regional Youth Support Services and ET Australia currently are. So the intention is, I don't know how many people have seen some of the new ways forward with what we're looking at with libraries. So libraries is obviously much more than books. It's about creating a place and a space for our community to come and to learn, but also to do business. So within our regional library, we will be relocating our Smart Work Hub. We also know that what the Smart Work Hub was designed for 4 years ago and how it needs to operate currently are worlds apart. So we expect that this will have meeting room and conference room facilities for pop-up businesses, start-up businesses to be able to come in, actually have office spaces, have networking opportunities, etc. So that will be a key element. Similarly though, we're still at the stage of doing designs for this particular project. We're working with Regional Youth Support Services and ET Australia. The expectation is that they will also remain on the same site and they'll become part of the overall broader project. So again, $7 million committed from the federal government for that. Requirement for council to match that by $8.1 million. We don't have the $7 million at the moment. So we are negotiating, and positively, for both funding. So we don't have any concerns at all that we won't get the funding, but both departments have obviously questioned, what are we doing? So look, I mean, for me, I do think it's really exciting. We get asked all the time, do you think amalgamation's working? I mean, as I said, I'm a resident as well as somebody that's got responsibilities of making it happen. We're already realising some great efficiencies. We've now got the leverage to have the voice as one region, which we didn't have. For years we've spent time fighting against each other and probably kneecapping each other on great bids, but I think we're obviously started a journey. We're already starting to realise, and we know that the efficiencies are going to be realised really quickly, and most importantly, it's about a fresh start. So what we've been really clear on, it's not about doing it the Gosford way or the Wyong way, it's about what is the way forward that we need to be working on. So that's provided a whole level of energy, but also concern internally from staff, because it means multiple change, but also, through that process, people are saying, wow, you can actually do the same thing in such a quicker and smarter way.
Okay, well, would you join me in thanking Julie? Thank you very much, Julie.